So now we have some more problems because Friesland is not a valid rival anymore of ours, but it is fine. We send our ships to repair, and now we turn our attention towards the south. We have to take care of both Wales, France, and more states like England. We managed to secure our royal marriage with England, which is of course amazing, so that we do not get attacked by either side of the 100 Years' War. Considering that the entirety of our territory is near the coastline, this is very important because of course England could just blockade us and completely deny us our income. I also check for more allies and vassals, possibly, for the future in the area of Western Germany, as of course all these states are going to be pretty useful as allies. I especially decide to ally Münster, but they've reached their alliance limit, so that is of course not the best possible thing. I also checked for some more allies. Unfortunately, because of the time we had that we spent as a junior partner, we unfortunately didn't have as much of a chance to reach that. So that was really not the best possible thing. We managed to, however, get an alliance with Liège. Liège, of course, being a archbishopric down there in the south, is a pretty okay little state to ally up with. Because also they are pretty much positioned in a strategic location right near Flanders, our possible rival and enemy. I've also gained a lot of ducats in that war, so since my mission is still to fortify Holland, I decide to see how expensive that would be. And by Holland I believe it's Zuid-Holland. Yeah, Zuid-Holland is the name of the province. So I check how expensive it is to actually build a castle, and it is quite expensive. I would have to spend pretty much all of my money for the castle building, but it is, I guess, important to have defenses up. I can take the 7th level of technology for my navy. That is of course quite important, and I decide to see if I can build heavy ships, and I cannot. I decided that I will focus on heavy ships because they are just they're just more durable. Of course, Bosnia is placed under an interdict. That is not really much of our concern. However, that is a good event because supporting the papacy does give us some extra papal relations. I check out my court level, which can use a bit of a boost. So we shall both fund the court and the education system by only 5 per year, so not really all that much, but it is enough to drop our income a little bit. However, it is worth it to educate the future generations and also to show our strength to the world in our great court. I decide to improve relations some more with France, and of course that is partially because I want to be safe while I complete my expansion. Only one of those provinces is in accord of the ones we took from Utrecht, so that is no problem. Also, the province we took from Friesland was our core. It was a reconquest war, so that is why Holland is very, very strong with its expansion. It has some good potential to expand right away without having to core it, and that is of course quite good. Brabant is still the junior partner of Luxembourg, and since I don't really want to fight Luxembourg yet, I am not going to declare war on them. Also, my manpower is fairly low, 623. I request again the promotion to Margravate, but unfortunately Charles IV denies the request, so that is the second time he denies the request, which is of course really bad because it decreases our prestige. Also, quite important is the fact that, again, with my manpower low, I am gaining the Peasants' War disaster quite quickly, which is a bit of a problem. Of course, also, I noticed that I'm out of my, well, over my leader limit. So, Admiral is, of course, fired, unfortunately for him. I'm still trying to figure out how the trade exactly is going to work for us, but in the early game, trade power isn't really all that important regardless. And the Pope decides that they're going to appoint a Archbishop to us, for which we are very grateful. We get a religious head he's learned, and that's good. I don't really like having disloyal religious heads because my legitimacy is already low. So if I had received a disloyal religious head, that would have been pretty bad. My fort upgrade is, well, underway, which is good. And I get some good events for stability increase. And that's, of course, quite nice. I can also take the new level of military technology, and we shall do that. But yeah, it is really not that important for now, because we are not at war. However, because we have a military reformer, I decide to take it as quickly as possible to avoid him dying and us losing that 10% bonus towards military technology. Also, I decide to send out an order to my fleet. Maybe not now, but I will do it, telling them to go to war. Well, not to go to war, to go to port when I'm at war. You may be wondering why I decided to not take an alliance with welders. That is because they hold some of our cores, so it is going to be pretty much counterproductive to ally them up because we are going to attack them anyway. And that would mean a loss of stability. So we don't want to lose any kind of stability, especially with low manpower. We get the Renaissance Influences event, but that is really no big deal because it's likely to not really come into play for a long time. So, of course, our bishop is an absentee, which either presents us a choice of losing unrest or ducats. I decide that the unrest is fine. Because our country is still pretty small, our communication efficiency is going to be very good. Because of all those events that we got to improve stability, and because of the wars that we won, we get to enjoy a brief period of complete stability. I still have that claim on Cleves, but I decide not to press it because it would be quite costly to siege down Cleves. It would still give us the ability to take their concession of defeat and annulment of treaties, so we would gain quite a bit of prestige out of it, but it is not worth losing manpower to actually gain that prestige. So I just decided that, especially since their allies would join and ours wouldn't, it is safer to just stand around. Because my my manpower situation is just too bad. I also noticed that there's this little county called Benthai to my east. They are Dutch, which means that it would be quite simple to integrate them into our country. And of course, that would go a long way towards gaining, that is 15 counties that we need to own in the Low Countries region to form a Dutch nation, aka the Netherlands. So while that is an important objective of ours, especially while we have a ruler like Willem, who is very strong and administrative. We need an administrative at least 5 ruler to form the Netherlands before a certain tech level, before a certain idea group is finished. It would be nice to do it early, as early as possible. Of course, we also have the Frisian culture, which isn't Dutch culture, but it is part of the, I believe, either Dutch culture group or some kind of culture group that we're part of. So you can see that it is yellow instead of red in the text. So if the font was red, it would mean that it was a non-accepted culture. But since it is yellow, it means that it is a non-accepted culture in our cultural group. So that means that we're a little similar culturally, but we don't have exactly the same. So at this point, I'm checking out our availability of claims and the likes around. I noticed that there's both a peasant war brewing and a civil war brewing, so perhaps it wouldn't be the best option to go in just yet. England still wouldn't take an alliance because of our alliance limit, or rather their alliance limit, and finally we complete our mission to fortify Holland. Now we have a few missions that are a little inconvenient. Forming an alliance with Bentheim is not good because we're going to attack them. Gaining more troops protecting against Flanders is also not very feasible because they have 9,000 men, which are way too many for us right now. And also, well, the last one is to claim Flanders, which is possible. Of course, we're not going to be able to take Flanders because, again, they right off the bat are more powerful than we are. And also they are allied with France, so they even have better allies than us. And our general died, so unfortunately Jan de Vries is with the Lord now, and we're gonna have to find a new general. We still don't have the best kind of army tradition. We'll check upon the greater nobles, because the greater nobles surely would have something better, and they do indeed have a better general. Leuden with 25 tradition, not the worst general to have ever grazed the earth. And to repay them for it, I decide to bestow a gift upon them to improve their loyalty. And also it does improve stability as well, by a tiny bit. Still have some truces with Friesland, so of course it is not in our best interest to break truces. That would be 5 stability down the drain, and that would be quite bad for our country. But we have managed to claim East Friesland, at least. So at this point we have claims on most of the people we want to attack. We only need to claim Bentheim, which is going to be our next target. More corruption. More and more corruption. There's always more corruption in MEIOU&Taxes. That is partially caused by the amount of privileges our nobility has, but we can't curb them quite yet, so that is quite bad. At this point, I also have the ability to ally up with some more of our neighbors. So I jump at the chance, because more alliances equals more security for our still growing little empire. And that brings us over the diplomacy limit, the diplomatic relations limit, but that is fine. It is a small price to pay, some extra diplomatic power, especially when we have a 6 diplomatic power leader to essentially have more security for our nation. And now we have gained our first core province that we've taken with force. That is a great step forward. From being a subject to now being expanding, feels pretty good. The problem still is our lack of alliances. We only have alliances with some very small neighbors, and we still don't really have the best internal situation. Our manpower is not the best, and it will not recover in time for the Peasants' War, unfortunately. However, at least a good thing is our technology. We are steadily gaining in technologies, partially because of our great ruler, partially because of some inherent strengths of Holland, just as a nation. Looking at the great map of Europe, we see that Poland and Lithuania are ganging up on the Teutonic Order, very honorably of them, and nothing much else is happening. However, as we say that, some more wars erupt in our neighborhood. And it looks like also the Iberian Peninsula is pretty much on fire. Now I tried to check for some more advisors, but I realize it is not really a good option considering our income is still quite low. I do manage to get a good ecclesiastical writing, which means some extra prestige if we publish it among our nation. Of course I decide to take it. It's only 2 prestige, but it is 2 prestige nonetheless. Because, well, the more prestige and legitimacy we have, the better, and right now it's just a pretty dismal situation for that. And we also gain an offer, interestingly, for a Jewish synagogue. I decide to take it as, at this point in the game, 5 ducats is essentially 2/3 months of income. I also thought about giving them state support, which would have lost us some income in exchange for legitimacy, but that is fine. So lots of religious events coming through for us, also some missionary shortages, but that is fine, as our neighborhood is pretty much entirely Catholic, and until the Reformation we won't really have any problems with missionaries, conversions, and the likes. We also gain a second idea group. I was thinking to go for either a diplomatic or an administrative, of course because I cannot take another military tech idea group. The problem, well, I here I'm checking if I need some idea groups to actually form the Dutch nation, and I do need mercantilism and humanist completed, which is quite the big expenditure of points. It's going to take a while to complete those two if I can't form the Dutch nation before my ruler dies, or before I get another administrative 5 ruler. However, I just decide to go with something that's going to benefit me in the short and long term. And my choices kind of narrow down to bureaucracy, administrative, culture, and trade, because those 4 are just really, really strong. Culture improves your technology research rate. Also, bureaucracy is just really, really good for expansion. Although, so far we don't really need any big sort of boosts to our expansion, because we're still pretty much in an area where we have the same culture and same, well, even lots of cores on our neighbors. I also briefly skim over some other of these trade groups, and I decided that, well, we might as well go for a diplomatic one, because diplomatic points are usually the ones that are most, we have the biggest supply of. And trade ideas is of course really, really strong, because that not only complements our national ideas that already focus quite heavily on trade, it also complements our strategic location right near a couple of very strong trade nodes. We can even take the national trade policy for some extra trade efficiency quite soon. We're almost ready. The Teutonic Order loses its war against Poland. Unfortunate for them. And yes, I'm just waiting for the diplomatic power to gain that trade. idea. And that's easily enough gained. That increases our income by a little tiny bit. But it will stack up with time. It will stack up and become more important. Of course, there's a chance to lose some stability, but I take it, and we do lose stability. So we got quite unlucky there. And now I'm setting my sights on my neighbors once again, because of my manpower situation having recovered, which will turn out to be a bit of a mistake, unfortunately.
This has to stop now. We can't go on with this worrying so much. It was already bold enough to assail Utrecht so soon after our independence, and I've heard it said that the Count plans to extend his rule to more cities in the east. Cities in which I am sure you have many friends. I don't think this must be worrying, as long as we're on the winning side, that is.
So, we finally managed to get our claim on Bentheim, which is great, and on East Flanders, which of course gives us our mission completed. Unfortunately, the new missions don't exactly interest me all that much, so I just leave them be. Because it would be pretty bad sport to get ourselves wrecked. Now, Liège and Münster would join against me if I attack Bentheim, so I decide to attack them to essentially draw them in. I will, however, make a bit of a mistake. I do call in Münster on my side. Wait, did I say Münster? Yeah, right, they will join on my side. I do call in Münster, and it gives Münster the command of the siege. And that, of course, means that I will not be able to annex Bentheim. So for a while, I will be out of the province. I'll not really have anything to do with it. What I was trying to do is be able to attack Friesland, who, as you can see, has Guelders as an ally, to essentially bring Guelders in and take them out as well. So that is my next objective, essentially. And to do that, I also start to spy network Guelders, see if I can get a claim on the province before I actually attack, but Ish will not be able to, because of course Friesland we have a truce with, but at the same time the amount of time required to actually set up a spy network is very, very long. At least one that can actually fabricate a claim for Holland. So that is going to have to wait, unfortunately. And we have a peasants' war, of course. I couldn't really fix the manpower situation quickly enough. So what happens during the peasants' war is that essentially all of your provinces, yeah, now I run up against the cold hard truth that I cannot capture the province. So I just do whatever I can to gain some prestige. This peace deal gains me a fair amount of prestige, so it is actually quite worth it in the end, even though we do not get the province. Because our lack of prestige is really, really terrible. It is hurting our diplomatic relations quite a lot, and it is hurting our legitimacy even more. And of course, our legitimacy does not help with the fact that we are in a peasants' war. Because, as I said, it increases the revolt risk in essentially all of the provinces that you own. So it is very, very bad to have this event, although it is not the worst thing that can happen, because you can still fix it. And it's still gonna fix itself, essentially, a few years. Although I believe my peasants' war, I get quite lucky with it, and it lasts only a couple of months. And that's pretty fine for me, of course. I will not complain about not getting my country destroyed by a peasants' war. It's I believe to have at least a chance of ending the Peasant War, you need to take out the Peasant Organizing modifier from your provinces, which usually happens after you defeat the rebellion, but it can also happen on its own, and that's sometimes confusing, but oh well. So now I'm checking if they're going to join. Now, Welders has Münster as an ally, which is why I had Bentheim declared. Well, why I declared war on Bentheim, because my ploy was that I would be in a war with Münster against Bentheim, and then I would be able to declare war on both Welders and Friesland, and not have to fight Münster, because I could call in Welders. I know it's getting complicated, but I could call in Welders as a co-belligerent of the enemy, and so then I would be able to both have the cake and eat it too. Keep my alliance with Münster and take out Welders. It doesn't end up working out because I peace out quickly with Bentheim, and because of that, I have to leave Welders as a non-belligerent. Of course, as you will see, this does not end up being a problem. Now, their army is about half of our size. Our stability improves, which is great. It's only about half of our size, and because we managed to destroy the army within the first week of the fighting, we are able to stack wipe them. And then I just go about putting a regiment on every single province that the enemy owns so that they cannot recruit regiments. And with my great general, I managed to siege out the coastal province that Welders owns. And then I can just simply vassalize the country, which is why my little mistake in executing my plot didn't end up hurting Holland's growth as a country. There are my logistics ideas. Logistics ideas aren't that bad because they do have quite a lot of things that reduce attrition and increase siege ability. For example, the supply train also increases reinforcement speed. We gain quite a bit of papal influence. I'm not sure why I chose the papal influence over the prestige here. I think that was a big mistake on my part because I need the prestige. But oh well. So at least we're getting showered with good events due to the Renaissance. And now also the loyalty of our bourgeoisie improves, so that's not too bad. Since that province down to the south doesn't have a fortification, I can just simply send my 2nd Cavalry Regiment to occupy it without a siege, which is excellent because it does not lose manpower. And considering how we're still technically in the Peasants' War, recovering manpower is going to be our #1 priority. I also attempt to send a diplomat to improve the relations with Bohemia, because Bohemia is, of course, the Emperor. And now I am just laying siege to East Friesland and using my little navy to blockade. I noticed that the aggressive expansion isn't going to be that bad for the vassalization of Welders, and I just do that instead while taking the coastal province and a healthy sum of cash to, of course, fuel our war machine. The coastal province is taken because partially I need more provinces to form the Dutch nation, and also partially because the more coastal provinces I had, the more trade power, of course, I will be able to have in the North Sea and in the Channel. And now I managed to... Oh, the estates are less restless. Well, convince them. Do I convince them? Yeah, I convinced them of the righteousness of the cause of the state, or whatever. I love that event. You can gain absolutism, also known as centralization MEIOU&Taxes, which isn't important for Holland because they're already at maximum centralization. And now I managed to take myself another province. So we are now in a pretty good position. We have our main strategic holdings secured. I was going to check out the price of upgrading some buildings in Holland. Now we'll also have some vessels ready to defend us in case we're in a war. We have reached essentially the limit of our natural borders in northern Europe. Going further east wouldn't be that beneficial, because then we start encountering lots of German culture. And we see that the price of upgrading roads is absolutely too expensive for Switzerland. I'm not sure why I decide to visit the province again. I do manage to actually scrape up enough money to upgrade the road, however. So that's good. And for the last time, Willem III appeals to Charles IV of the Holy Roman Empire, and Karl refuses the request to upgrade to a Margravate, or I guess be promoted to a Margravate. So I am pretty mad at this point with Bohemia, and that's going to be about it for the episode. We have managed to become an independent nation, and after that expand some more, which is, I guess, what we wanted to do all along. And at this point, I'm trying to improve relations with both Bohemia and the Pope, because at this point, we need to start heading into the European arena. And of course, to do that, we need to have good relations with the big powers, also known as the Emperor and the Pope. So I'll see you soon.